Hey everyone, welcome to my channel where I talk about everything electric guitar. From book reviews to album reviews, gear reviews, guitar lessons, and much, much more. I've got you covered. So today I thought I'd make a review and demo of this guitar amp. The Blackstar ID Core 40. And so let's get right to it. So the specs of this amp has 6 different voicings. It has a gain knob, a volume knob, an EQ knob. It has modulation, delay, reverb, level knob for all those, 4 different types of effects for each of those, and of course a tap button for making the different tempos of delays and stuff like that. It has an emulated out and a MP3/line in, and of course an input, foot switch, power switch of course, and a button to switch from the manual to the store, because you can store tones in the different 6 voicing places. So let's talk about the things that I like about this amp. What I like about this guitar amp is that, for one, since it's digital, it's so versatile. You get so many different tones within one amp, so you don't have to just use the tones or styles that are included in whatever amp you have. It's not like, a Vox or something like that. It has so many tones. You can play 80s goth, The Cure, or country to heavy metal and stuff like that, rock. And so it's very versatile. It's a one-stop shop, if you will. So that's one thing I like about it, that I really like, because they're making these digital amps and they're becoming so much more popular. And I think it's for a good reason. Companies like Blackstar are creating very high quality sounding gear, and it's for a very affordable price, and I think it's great. It's a one-stop shop, and you don't have to go buy a million different types of amps to get the tone that you want. So that I really like. Okay, let's talk about the MP3 line in. I think that it sounds pretty good. I've seen some pretty poor sounding MP3 line ins, but if you hook up your phone or a CD player to it, it sounds pretty nice. It's a little bit low on the mids, but it sounds nice. Of course, the emulated out and phones, that's just a headphone jack, and the emulated out is if you want to take an AUX cord, and then basically you'd have to have an adapter AUX to an instrument cable, and then you'd have to, if you wanted the stereo sound, you'd have to split that cable using a adapter that gives you 2 instrument cable ports. Anyway, and then you could record directly into your audio interface, into your computer. So that's very nice. It allows you to have a very clean, crisp tone. So it has 6 voices, and they are clean, warm, clean, bright, crunch, super crunch, overdrive, and overdrive 2. And like I said earlier, these can also be places for you to store different preset tones you can create. So clean, warm, that's your jazzy, bassy, MIDI, warm tones. And clean, bright, it's more like country maybe, and then maybe funk or something like that. Crunch, of course, is your standard rock tones, and then super crunch is obviously more distorted than that. Overdrive is more distorted. Overdrive 1 is your typical like shreddy, MIDI. The mids are scooped, and it has quite a bit of treble, a little bit too much for my taste, but we'll talk about the EQ in a little bit. It's very nice. It has that very good chunking guitar sound, and it sounds great at high gain. The highest gain you can put it sounds really good, so that's good. Overdrive 2, it has a lot of mids, and it's a mid-oriented overdrive. So it's not going to be as good for your tremolo picking and stuff like that, but if you want a good guitar solo, or maybe a palm muted higher riff, maybe like D string, A string riff, it would sound very, very nice. So yes, those 2 overdrives, they both sound really well on high gain, so those are very good. The EQ, okay, the EQ. This is, I guess I was supposed to be talking about the pros, but I guess I'm moving on to the cons now. Sorry, I'm not very orderly with this. But the cons, this is my biggest con. This is the biggest thing I do not like about this amp, is the EQ. And it's really probably the only thing I don't like about this amp, because everything else can be excused, especially because of the price point. This amp isn't that expensive, so it's great. But the EQ, man, if you could just get a 3-band EQ with treble, bass, mids, that would be so much better. It's called EQ, and then at the bottom it says it's also ISF, which I can't remember what that stands for, but it's basically Blackstar's patented technology that allows you to supposedly change your amp between sounding like it's from the United Kingdom, like an amp would sound over there, or the United States. So it's not really EQ, it's just ISF. You can use it to get a sound you want, but there's really no part of it that's just making EQ. It's really just the way when you turn the knob it sounds. So that is a big bummer that there's no EQ. But the thing is, for the price point this is at, you can buy a $20 cheapo Behringer 3-band EQ pedal, and you could use that. Or, you could just take your EQ when you record, if that's what you're doing, and just take your EQ in whatever DAW you're using and clean it up a little bit, which is what I've done. So it's really just when you're wanting to play live that it really stinks, and it does. But again, you can excuse that because of the price point, so it's very good. The modulations, it has 4. I don't use too much modulation in my playing because I'm like a, heavy metal, power metal, symphonic metal. You don't hear too much tremolo in there, or vibrato, or anything like that, or phaser. You never hear a phaser in a master plan song or something like that. They have 4 different types like that of delay, and they all sound very good. The thing about those is that you're probably, when you're recording, you're not going to use delay and reverb off the amp anyway, because it just doesn't sound that good. And it doesn't matter how good your amp is. It doesn't matter if your amp's $20,000. It just won't sound good unless you have multiple mics, and even then you probably want to use a plug-in on your DAW. And I'm just using GarageBand because I don't have the money to invest in Logic Pro X. And there are plugins in GarageBand like Audio Unit Delay, Audio Unit Reverb 2. I like Audio Reverb Unit 2. I like that one for snare drums. It sounds very crisp, and it's moldable to where you like it. So basically, you can get a good reverb and delay even if you're not wanting to invest in expensive DAW. So basically what I'm saying is it doesn't really matter that the delay and reverb don't sound good into your mic, because you're probably not going to do that anyway. But they do sound very good when you're playing live. They sound very clean, very crisp. It gives you lots of different ideas, and that's another thing I like about these digital amps, is that they give you ideas, not necessarily just to use or just to take and use on the amp, but to use in other contexts, like in your recording. Like, I think I maybe want to sound more like this, so you experiment with a different type of delay. That's another thing I like about this amp in particular as a digital modeling amp, is that it's very straightforward and simple, yet it is very versatile. Because have you ever I'm sure you've gone to Guitar Center before and played a Fender Mustang, and you're like, where do I go? There's too many knobs and switches, and what do I do? Like, you have to call one of the people to try to get you a good guitar tone because you just can't find anything, I've had to do that before, and it's kind of silly, but, too many of those amps, they just sound great, but they're so complicated and deep, which that might be good, but it is very tempting when you're playing and practicing to just decide, I'm going to play along with some tones, and I'm going to work on this, and I'm going to try a Fender Twin, and then I'm going to try a Metallica one, and then, so you can kind of get carried away. So I like how this is so simple. Blackstar Insider is the software. It's an amp modeling software. It's for Mac and PC. And it is their modeling software for Blackstar's amps. And I plugged in, because there's a USB port right here on the amp, I plugged in the USB port, downloaded Blackstar Insider, and it would not recognize the USB port. It just wouldn't for some reason. And I don't know what the problem was. I tried 3 different computers. One was a PC and 2 were Macs, and none of them worked. I'm not sure if it's because of an update needed. I emailed Blackstar their contact, and they said they were planning on making a newer one. a newer version, but haven't had any luck with it so far. So I don't know what in the world is wrong with it, but I just know that Blackstar Insider does not work for me. So this is probably just a one-time thing. Don't get hung up on it, but it's just something to take into account. And that might be because here's the funny thing about mine. So I have somehow the Blackstar ID Core Stereo 40, not the 40 V2. I bought this at a music store, and I might have even been the shelf model. I'm not sure. But I don't know if this is just an older version, like maybe before Blackstar got out their most recent versions or something, or maybe they were phasing into the ID Core series and they hadn't made it V2 yet. I don't know. But it might have something to do with my Blackstar Insider problems. I don't know. If any of you out there own a ID Core Stereo 40, totally give me a comment, guys. I'd love to know. I'm not the only person who's having this problem. So Blackstar Insider, along those lines, is that's the other thing. I was like, oh man, I can't use this thing because it's very cool. And the thing is, that's part of the reason that the EQ doesn't matter so much, is because you can save presets that you create in Blackstar Insider on your computer to your different banks in the voicing knob in the voicing store. So basically, if you want to alter the tones and you're like, oh, I don't like this because Overdrive 1 just has way too much treble, you can just go into Blackstar Insider and take off the treble, and then you can save it to the store. So that would be a very simple fix, but I don't have that, so it kind of stinks. So anyway, I'm going to give you guys a demo of the different sounds that this amp has to offer. I'll be playing my Chapman ML1 modern lunar finish guitar that absolutely rocks, and yeah, I'll be recording with this dynamic cardioid mic right into the amp. So yeah, let's get to it. So overall, I think this amp is like absolutely awesome, especially if you're like a beginner and you're wanting to bridge the gap between a studio or not a studio, a practice amp and a amp that you can take on the road. Because even if you're not wanting to play live yet, if you're not part of a band, sometimes you just want to go outside and turn the thing up for the, of it. Especially because of the price point, it's very affordable and it sounds great. So, and even for the professional person, professional recording studio guitarist could use this in maybe the hotel room or something, and it would work splendidly. It's not something that they're going to use because most people are going to buy something much more expensive, and they possibly might not want to get a digital amp. They might want to get amps for everything they want, but I mean, you can't do that when you're a beginner. You have a budget here. I mean, who doesn't have a budget? So definitely check out the Blackstar ID Core 40 stereo amp. V2 or not. And if you guys have any comments, I'd love to hear them, so drop me a note. And if you like this video, do give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button to see my upcoming posts. Thanks for watching, and until next time, rock on and God bless.